I'm Hannah Wallace and welcome to Finextra TV. We're here at Money 2020 Europe, and kindly joining me now in the press lounge is Nico Strauss from Rabobank and Erik Setsaas from Signicat. Hello gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us.
Now the first thing I want to talk to you about is KYC. Why is it typically seen as a necessary evil and how can it be used for social good? Okay, we'll come to you first.
Well, we at Rabobank actually see it as a huge opportunity, but I get the general sense of the question. It's basically what we do to our customers, right? The government and regulators require that we verify certain information, and that process is perceived as clunky and involved and actually a big turn-off to our customers. And that's why we partner with Signicat to make sure that we can bring the new technological opportunities that there are in the market to our customers to make onboarding processes and KYC much easier.
Erik, is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so the reason it's seen as evil is from the end user perspective. We just released a report earlier this week, the Battle to Onboard, the third edition, and it shows that almost 40% of people abandon a digital onboarding. And this is because you need all this information to KYC the user. So these are things we're working on, how to simplify that process for the user, how to make it easier so it's not an evil. Because we need to gather information, but we need to do it in a simpler way.
All right, and I understand you're doing some really interesting work around migrants. So to start off, can you tell us a little bit about that then?
Okay. So that's always been a bit of a historical problem. You come from one country, you need to set yourself up in another country, and you don't have a credit score, you can't open a bank account because you don't have verifiable identification information. Over at Rabobank, together with the other banks in the Dutch market, we've started a bank-run identity scheme, but to be able to help migrant workers as well and start the road to interoperability, we need to work with international partners like Signicat to ensure that we have a complete suite of solutions. Well, I mean, Erik, you'll probably agree on this, but that interoperability isn't really there yet, but we need to start the bottom-up work now together so that as the technology develops, we can provide more and more use cases also to migrants.
So as part of this work, we're providing a platform. We have connection to more than 20 of these different EIDs. EIDs are used a lot in the Nordics. Almost everybody has an EID and use it for all kind of different purposes. EIDs regulation is trying to harmonize this across Europe, but it still has some way to go. I mean, it's initially only for public services, but I think over time we'll see that it will, I mean, if it's successful, it's going to help this cross-border identification of people.
And I mean, I guess the relevant analogy here is what happened in PSD1 in 2007. Once that legislation hit, we saw all kinds of new use cases develop, and we actually expect the same thing to happen now that the EIDAS framework has gone live in Europe. But these use cases will happen on an organic basis, and that's why we work together, Signicat on the international front, Rabobank running the Dutch market, so that we can start to create these new use cases and then hopefully convince regulators and governments that there is more work to be done so that we can help migrant workers in a more efficient manner down the road.
Well, it's certainly a really positive partnership, but how can you prevent details being leaked in the event of a breach, say?
So two aspects to that. One is, of course, to have a very good technical design, making sure you're not making a huge honeypot where you can, download all the data. And then equally important are the procedures for reporting, because there will be breaches. There are always breaches happening. And then having a good set of procedures for reporting when that happens. So you don't go the way of DigiNotar, right, which did not report in the correct way, and they went out of business because it eventually was discovered that they had a breach.
Yeah, DigiNotar is a good example. I mean, by now the Dutch market has a framework in a legal sense. So when there is a breach, you are required to report that to the authorities within a certain amount of time. That's something that we need to live by, of course. And as per what you were saying, Erik, it's the privacy by design element that is important. Also to make the sharing of data modular, right, which is what the Dutch ID scheme does. I mean, you can ask for certain elements. You don't have to ask for every bit of data every time. That way you also limit the exposure that there is. Naturally then, the compliance with GDPR and other relevant legislations is something that, we sense check every time we bring in new functionality together.
Right, and finally, coming on to the topic of PSD2, how is it helping lenders provide better credit terms and reduce fees?
So we've actually, I think last week, launched a new venture called Funder, and that is basically a digital lending street, if you will, and it will actually use the capabilities that PSD2 has to offer bespoke terms to customers in the lending space. That also has a link back to what we're doing in the identity space. Douwe Lieklama from InnoPay yesterday was talking about, you know, the 3 key messages of this year at Money 2020. PSD2 is just the beginning. Number 2 is that, you know, we start with open banking, but it's going to turn into a completely open data economy where the right of data determination for the consumer is key. Then we will start to see everything moving outside of banking. And then thirdly, that's only ever going to work if we have a good structure for doing identity and KYC. So from the perspective of Rabobank, you know, we're already doing things in the Dutch market. We're partnering with a great fintech to make sure that we can help grow that space and provide these new use cases so that we can make the future, as seen by Douwe Lieklama and InnoPay, an actual reality. So yeah, it's been a great ride so far.
So certainly ending on a really positive note there. Some really exciting developments ahead then as well. Gentlemen,